Hi friends, welcome back to my channel, Simplicity and a Starter. Today we are taking it back to one of my very first recipes on the website, sourdough banana bars. You guys are going to love them. They are a family favorite of my husband's, as it was actually one of the very first desserts that he made me when we were dating, and the very first bite that I took, I was sold. They're soft, they're fluffy, they're incredibly sweet, banana flavor, all around a crowd pleaser, and it will feed a crowd. So grab your sourdough discard and let's get baking. All right, so first off, you're gonna grab your handy dandy kitchen scale. I am a huge advocate for using your kitchen scale. I know it took me a while to be convinced because I grew up using cups and teaspoons and that's what I'm used to. But once you start using your kitchen scale, I promise you're not gonna wanna go back because it is just so exact. It's easy to reproduce and create the recipe as it should be baked. And so I'm going to grab my kitchen scale plus less dishes. So let's get started here. You're gonna start off with all-purpose flour, and we're gonna add 230 grams, or if you choose to use cups, you're going to use a cup and a half plus 2 tablespoons. When you do use cups for measuring, I highly suggest to fluff your flour and to actually spoon it into your measuring cups. This just helps keep a more consistent measurement of your flour. If you're using grams, you can just scoop it with a cup and use your tool to measure for you. So 230 grams of all-purpose flour. Next, you're gonna add a teaspoon of baking soda, or 5 grams, into the flour. Next, you're gonna add a teaspoon of salt, or 5 grams. Perfect. And then just give that a whisk to thoroughly incorporate. Perfect. From there, we're gonna move on to use our handy dandy stand mixer. You can use a hand mixer as well, whichever you have is perfect. And now for our wet ingredients. I'm going to grab the bowl of my stand mixer and place it onto my kitchen scale. Perfect. Now we're gonna add 350 grams, or 1 3/4 cups of sugar. To the sugar, we're gonna add 3/4 cup of sour cream, or 190 grams. So like I said, I love using a kitchen scale because I don't have to dirty a whole nother dish just to measure out my sour cream. Instead, I can just use a spoon, drop it into the bowl, and voila. Now to that, we're going to add 2 eggs. And finally, a half a cup, or 113 grams of softened, unsalted butter. If you have just salted butter, you can omit about like 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt. That's the measurement that most butter companies use. Now I'm gonna add that to my stand mixer and mix on low just for a minute to incorporate the ingredients. After a minute or so, you're going to want to stop this stand mixer and just scrape the sides of the bowl. Make sure everything is getting nicely incorporated and not stuck on the bottom of the bowl. I'm just going to give it a little tiny bit of a mix more. So you'll notice that the butter is kind of like separated, not as like creamed as like a cookie dough. This is totally normal. I'm just having like bits of butter. Now for the star ingredient, your bananas. We're gonna need a 1.5 cups of mashed bananas, or about 380 grams. You're gonna wanna use your brown bananas. Do not be scared off by this ingredient because The more brown that they are, the sweeter your sourdough banana bars are going to be. All right, so it looks like we have about 327 grams for me. Perfect. We'll do 387 grams for 3.5 bananas. And so now I'm gonna mix them up until they're nice and mashed. One of my favorite things about this recipe is just how simple it is, but also I almost always have the ingredients ready to go to make this recipe. It feeds a crowd, it is delicious, and again, they're your pantry staple ingredients, and so you can quickly put it together. And into the mixing bowl it goes. Let's give that a quick little whisk on low just for about 30 seconds or so. Now for the last wet ingredients, we're going to add our sourdough discard and our vanilla extract. We're gonna add a 1/2 cup of sourdough discard. Now, I especially love to use the kitchen scale, if anything, for the flour and for the sourdough discard. Some people prefer to have a starter that hasn't been fed, so there's no bubbles in it at all. Or some people like to use active starter in their discard recipes as well. And that can change how much of volume you actually have depending on how many bubbles or how aerated your starter is. So when you use a kitchen scale, you're always going to have the exact measurement because you're using weight rather than volume. And so if you use sourdough discard, it's about 1/2 cup, like I said. If you're using active starter, it's going to be more, but you're going to want to add 140 grams of discard into your wet ingredients. And then last but not least, we have our vanilla extract. We're going to add 2 teaspoons or 8 grams of vanilla extract. And I highly encourage you to use vanilla extract over imitation just for the best possible flavor, especially because this is such a simple cake. You really want those flavors to really shine through. Give her a mix on low for another 30 seconds until incorporated. Now that all our wet ingredients are incorporated and mixed up, it's time to add in our dry. Speaking from experience, it's best to add in the flour in small increments rather than all at one time because let's just say there was a floured kitchen. And don't forget to scrape the sides of the bowl just to make sure everything is incorporated. So continue to mix on low once all of the flour is incorporated. Personally, I like to stop even when I see just a few streaks of flour and then finish by hand. You don't want to overmix the cake because that can lead to a tough crumb. You're gonna wanna prepare a 11 by 16 rimmed baking sheet. It's about 1 inch deep. What I like to do is I like to grease it first. You could use cooking spray or you could use butter, whatever you have. And then you're going to place a piece of parchment paper on top. This just helps for easy lift at the end after it's baked. Place that on top. Grease again the top of the parchment paper and then pour your batter and you are set to go. Once you poured all the batter into the baking sheet, just make sure that you spread it out for an even layer. You're gonna place that in a preheated oven at 375 degrees and bake that for 20 to 25 minutes or until the top is golden brown and a toothpick comes out clean. While the banana bars are baking, let's prepare the vanilla glaze. We're gonna start off with 4 cups or 520 grams of powdered sugar. Now for these banana bars, I absolutely love this vanilla glaze. It's thick, it's luscious, and it just adds that extra sweetness to this super simple dessert. But honestly, if you prefer just really focusing on the banana bars, you could cut this recipe in half, or you could just omit it completely. I've had plenty of followers just say, just left it plain and I just sprinkled on some walnuts or pecans in the actual batter, and they just ate it like that, almost like banana bread. But I think the vanilla glaze gives this just a step up. We're gonna add a half a cup of butter, or 113 grams. To that, we're gonna add 3 teaspoons of vanilla extract, or 12 grams. Goodness, I just love that flavor, that smell. Okay, and finally, we're going to add hot water. This helps with the consistency of the vanilla glaze, so it's not a vanilla frosting. And we're going to do 4 tablespoons or 56 grams worth of hot water. Wonderful. We're going to place that onto our stand mixer. Mix it on medium-low until it is nice and smooth. This looks perfect. Now, if you notice that your glaze isn't getting as smooth as mine, you can sparingly add some more hot water, about like 1 teaspoon, maybe 2 teaspoons at a time, until you get that just smooth, luscious vanilla glaze. I'm just gonna scrape the sides of the bowl. Oh, just look at that, and the smell, fabulous. So good. And she is looking perfect. We have the nice golden brown edging, soft, fluffy, and the smell is just that sweet banana coming through. It is gonna taste so good. So the hardest part is waiting for topping the banana bars with the vanilla glaze. It's kind of like a Goldilocks situation here. We don't want it to be too warm, because if the cake is too hot, it's going to completely melt the glaze and just soak into the sourdough banana bars. But we don't want it to be too cold, because then it becomes really just like thick and hard to spread out. It can kind of pull up the tops of the banana bars. So you want to wait until it's just warm so that it will slightly melt the glaze. It's smooth and easy to spread, and like I said, delicious. All right, so now we've let our cake cool just slightly, so it's still warm and warm enough to spread out our vanilla glaze. Then with your offset spatula, or the back of a spoon, or your rubber spatula, whatever you have, evenly distribute the glaze all over the delicious sourdough banana bars. Are you kidding me? See how easily it was for me to be able to spread the glaze all over the sourdough banana bars. You don't want it to be sticking to the cake or ripping up any of the crumb as well. Now it is 100% delicious, served as is, but if you're looking for a little bit more crunch or texture in your sourdough banana bar, sprinkle on top some chopped pecans or chopped walnuts, and that is super good as well. Slice up these sourdough banana squares into even squares, and they are absolutely delicious when you serve them warm, fresh out of the oven, but they last for days. Honestly, they become even more moist as the days go on. I just can't get over how incredibly soft and fluffy and so moist these sourdough banana bars are. They are incredible, and like I said before, they get even better as the days pass on. They are a crowd pleaser, so simple to make, and it's an excellent way to use any extra sourdough discard that you might have. And the topping, the vanilla glaze, is just the perfect complement to this simple yet sweet sourdough cake. I hope you guys enjoyed this recipe. If you did, please be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you for the next one. Bye!